Hello, thank you, thank you. I'm delighted to be here, and we've got a great crowd. Change is happening faster and faster, and so many of the jobs that you will have will involve you responding to those changes and creating new things. And with our approach here and giving you opportunities for innovation, we think that's going to provide you with a competitive advantage. So today I'm going to talk about 4 questions. The first one is, what is the Da Vinci event? The second one is, are you creative? Are we all creative? Are we innovative? The next one is, do creative people think differently? And the last one, who is this guy Da Vinci, and does he have any ideas that we can use to make our own creations and innovations more exciting and more effective? So I'm going to talk for a while, and then I'll open it up to questions and hopefully provide some answers and some dialogue with you guys. So what is the Da Vinci event? It is a celebration of innovation, of your ideas, your designs, your concepts. We picked the name Da Vinci because he excelled in a whole lot of fields: art, engineering, medicine, military, tactics, and devices. And we wanted something that would attract students from all different parts of our campus and all the different programs that we have. We have a number of categories to reflect that. The first one is, and if you have one of these sheets, you can kind of follow along with me. The first one is a clever concept. And people always say, well, what the heck is that? What's a clever concept? Well, I was out wandering around one day and I found a product that I thought was so clever I had to buy one. And it was advertised with this drawing, this painting. This is Vincent van Gogh. And he cut off his ear to impress a girl. I don't think that really works. Am I wrong about that? But anyway, that was his idea. Told his family it was a shaving accident. And so the product that I saw was this: an eraser. And guess what? It's an eraser. And it says on the package, Go, G-O-G-H, and erase your mistakes. So I thought that was pretty clever. If you come up with something like that, you got a chance to win in that category. The next one is artistic appeal. And we often think of that in terms of beautiful paintings, beautiful designs, and so forth. And we think of that in terms of the art department. And our next speaker next week, Jim Gibson, is over there, and he's a professor of art. And so we think of that. But I just got a magazine earlier this week called Men's Journal, and it has all of their best designs. And this is, guys, the new Lamborghini. If you have to ask how much it costs, you can't afford it. But they have pages of great designs. So this is a category that we'll recognize. We'll have separate judges for each category. The next category is a particular niche, a group of customers who are kind of small maybe, but they have a particular need. And I once dealt with an entrepreneur who made what I thought was a crazy product. It's an extension for people who do gaming all the time, and they do video games and their thumbs get tired. And so he has an extension so their thumbs don't get so tired. He makes $5 million a year selling to this little niche market. Our next category, nobody thought that was funny. I thought that was crazy. I mean, maybe y'all are gamers and you already have this product. But anyway, the next one is things that have a huge commercial potential. So these can go viral. They can scale really big, be the next Facebook, right? You can be the next Bill Gates or Steve Jobs or somebody. So ideas that have that potential, that's a special category. The next one is one that's kind of fun. It is, I mean, whenever you go to one of these, you come away and you say, I got to tell you about this thing I saw at this contest. It was so cool. And it may be in none of those categories, but it's just the one that everybody talks about. And we call that the viral contender. It's the one that's going to be on Facebook, or rather on YouTube, and get downloaded 1,000 times. So if you've got something that's just, that just has that buzz, that's going to get all that word of mouth, then that's a separate category that we'll try to recognize. And then finally, so we have those 5 categories, and the 6th category is the people's choice. So you get your friends and all their friends to vote for your thing, and if you get the most, you win. Now, in each of these categories, we're going to have about 4 awards, 4. First, second, third, and honorable mention. And there'll be some money associated with each one, as Dr. Anelli pointed out. So those are the categories. We'll have separate judges, and they will award the prizes. Now, I need to tell you the specifics of where and when it is. It's going to be in the Commons. It's going to be October the 5th, that's a Thursday, from 11:30 to 2:30. And you can find it on these little sheets, but I'll just make it easy. To sign up, you go to CFE, Center for Entrepreneurship, at uwf.edu. Everybody got that? Very simple, very simple. So that's what the Da Vinci Innovation Celebration is about. It's a celebration of your ideas. Now, am I creative? Are we creative? Well, we had an ancestor named Lucy, and 3.4 million years ago, she and all of our other ancestors lived on the plains of Africa. Now, what did Lucy look like? Well, not much. She stood upright. She was only about 3 feet tall, kind of hairy. She didn't have big teeth in her jaws. She didn't have claws in her paws. She wasn't muscular. She wasn't fast. So to all the carnivores around there, the hyenas and the lions, she looked like lunch. But she survived. How did she do it? Well, I was vacationing with my family in a place called Lewa Downs in northern Kenya, and so the owner of the property, David Craig, said, let's all jump in the Land Rover and go see some rocks. Rocks? So we go out to a big flat spot, and he says, get out, let's go look at rocks. So we did. Some of the rocks looked distinctly different. He said, you can't take those home. But these rocks were about hand size, and they had a sharp edge. I mean, really sharp. Some of them were flint, some obsidian, and I mean, you could shave with these. So he took these rocks to his friend Richard Leakey, noted physical anthropologist at the university there in Nairobi. And Richard said, David, these things are about 3.4 million years old. So Lucy and her friends didn't play fair. They threw rocks, really sharp rocks. And the lions learned, hey, you want to stay away from those little funny people because they're dangerous. And they also could use these to cut acacia branches. Acacia branches are really thorny, and the Maasai today use them to put around their village to keep the lions away. So that's how we did it. We innovated. So innovation is in your DNA and has been for 3.4 million years that we know of. So we believe that you can and should and will be innovative. You need some practice. How do creative people think? Well, when I was a graduate school at Ohio State, a couple of psychologists published a book, and it was about divergent versus convergent thinking. I had no idea what that was, but it sounded interesting. Divergent thinking is how many ideas can you generate? You all know what convergent thinking is. It's like multiple choice. There's one right answer, and you need to come up with it, otherwise you're wrong. But in divergent thinking, it's coming up with a lot of stuff. So I was kind of intrigued with this, so I went over to one of the local grade schools, and I got them to give me a couple of their very, very creative 10-year-olds. Because it turns out divergent thinking grows and grows until you're about 10 years old, and then it begins to go away. We'll talk about that in a minute. So I got these 2 little boys who were very, very creative. And my question was, does creativity depend on having a huge IQ? or not? So if you've got an IQ, like Da Vinci maybe, are you going to naturally be more creative than somebody sort of average like us? Well, what I found out, I had these two boys, and I had Billy, and I gave Billy the Stanford Binet, an intelligence test. He scored 230 on it. 10-year-old favorite book, Mazers and Lasers. So I taught him Freudian psychology in about 30 minutes, and he got the whole thing completely, understood it. The other young man was a boy named Danny, and Danny had a pretty good IQ himself. It was about 128, which is probably like most of you guys. And so I gave him the test. How many things can you do with a brick? How many things can you do with a pencil? How many things can you do with a penny? Both of them produced extremely long lists. There was really no difference, except Billy spelled most of the words right. So we know we think differently, and we know that generating a lot of ideas is what divergent thinking is all about. But what happens is, by the time we get to be 10 years old, somebody has said to us, oh, your drawing is really not that great. You thought you were Da Vinci, but no, you're not. And the other thing is, in school, we systematically try to beat that out of you. In all your classes, we're going to give you a grade based on you getting the right answer, and we determine what that right answer is. It's not how many answers can you come up with, but actually to be creative, your first answers are usually boring and popular and repetitive like everybody else's, but the more ideas you get, the farther out they get, and some of them turn out to be actually kind of valuable, kind of good. So I'm going to give you a chance to play this game. So I'd like you to pair off with somebody sitting right next to you. You two just paired off, I guess, right? Okay. So find somebody to pair off with. It's not that difficult. You two, however you want to do it. Everybody ready? Everybody paired off? Okay. So this game is called Bears and Tigers. So one of you will be a bear, the other will be a tiger. So decide who's the bear and who's the tiger. Okay, so the way we play this game is this. You get 30 seconds, and you say, bears are great because. Tigers are great because. So bears are great because they're furry. Bears are great because they can poop in the woods. Bears are great because they have their own football team. Tigers are great because they have kittens, they have fur, they can hide really well with stripes. But you keep going, and there's no right answer. If you say tigers can fly, that's okay. So it's as many as you can come up with. Actually, we're flying tigers, by the way. So as many things as you can come up with. So if we're going to go with the bears first, bears are great because, and the other person counts the number that you come up with. So the idea is to talk as fast as you can, get as many ideas as you can, be as crazy as you want to. It doesn't count. Ready, set, double set, ready, go. Stop, 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 stop. Once you get going, it's hard to stop, right? Okay, now we're going to switch around, and tigers get to say tigers are great because, and bears count. Okay, ready, set, go. Stop. Stop. So how'd you do? Who felt they got a lot of them? Who's got a number they're proud of? How many?
21.
21. All right, that's almost 1 per second. Anybody beat 21? So were the ideas good or kind of silly?
They were amazing.
Amazing. Okay, love to hear that. So that's a matter of practice, and that's how we do it. We practice being creative. It turns out that people who are really good at generating a lot of ideas turn out with a lot of good ideas eventually. In business, it takes about out of 52 ideas, we get one that's commercially viable. And 75% of the profit for corporations is with products and services that have been invented within the last 5 years. So there's a real need to be renewing this whole cycle of innovation. So we see how it works. Now, once we create all those ideas, then we have to apply our convergent intelligence to pick out the really good ones, right? And then we'll compare them with other people. We use a team to build on what we have, and we'll eventually get to something that's probably going to be successful. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about Da Vinci. Who was this guy? And can he help me to be more creative? Well, Leonardo da Vinci was born in 1452 in the middle of the Renaissance in a village called Da Vinci. He was illegitimate, a real bastard, in the days when that was a big deal, a huge deal. For example, that meant two things. One, he couldn't follow his father's profession. And I submit that was a good thing because his father was an accountant. So Da Vinci as an accountant, not so good. Not so good, and we would have lost a lot. The second thing was that he couldn't go to school and study Latin, which in those days, I mean, that's how all the intelligent people learned all of the conventional wisdom. So we often hear people talking about the box. You got to get out of the box. And so anybody ever tell you what the box was?
Yeah, the box is the social way of thinking.
A social way of thinking. That's pretty darn good. I think there are two major components of that box. One is comfort. We want to be comfortable. And you get outside the box, this is feeling kind of scary. I'm out here all alone. Wow, this is... And we really want you in the Da Vinci celebration to push it, to be way out there. And the farther out you are, the better you'll probably do. The second thing about the box is it's about conformity. Just as the man said. It's about doing things the way it's always been done, the status quo. We're all comfortable doing that, right? So we psychologists often invent sneaky research. And one of them, and this is actually, there's a film, and it's really funny because the setup was an elevator. And you know, there are rigid rules about being in an elevator. Probably noticed that. You have to face the front. If you don't, you're some kind of a weirdo, right? People will get off the elevator. So what they did, a guy was standing there facing the front like a regular person. And the psychologist sent 3 people in, and they walked right in and faced the back. And it's funny to watch, but the guy felt so uncomfortable. He's like this, and pretty soon he turns and he faces the back too. He was outside the box. Gee, that's terrible. So Da Vinci invented a lot of stuff because he began as a bastard outside the box, didn't get any Latin, couldn't be an accountant. But he invented a lot of stuff. So I'm going to say something, and then you tell me who invented it, and the answer will be Da Vinci. Yeah. So who was the first one to identify the functioning of the mitral valve in the heart? Da Vinci. Who was the person who painted the Mona Lisa? Da Vinci. Who invented lift and the first functional aeroplane? Da Vinci. Who invented spaghetti?
Da Vinci.
the Chinese. But Da Vinci invented everything else. In fact, he wasn't very good with food. He could never have made it in the hospitality industry, I'm afraid. We learned 2 lessons from that. First, he had an opportunity from his boss, who was Lodovico Sforza, the Duke of Milan, to develop a kind of a great banquet for 200 of the Duke's closest friends. And he screwed it up. He set the place on fire, and then when they tried to put it out, he flooded it. So nobody got any food that night. And that tells us 2 things, I think. One is that everybody makes mistakes, even great geniuses. And the second thing, it tells us why he didn't invent McDonald's. Invented everything else, but not McDonald's. So we can learn that everything is sort of a prototype, and if you make mistakes, it's okay. You know, you said something about the tigers that isn't really true or useful or even funny. That's okay, you can change it. So there are 4 techniques that we can use for. And this comes from a book that you may want to get called How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci by Michael Gelb. And Michael has 7, but I find 4 is easier for me to deal with. So we'll deal with the 4. The 4 actually correspond to what a couple of psychologists came up with, and is still consistent with what we think currently about some of the things involved in the creativity process. And it is a process, and it's a messy process, by the way. So these things don't go in order at all, or, well, they do sort of, but not exactly. So the first one, and I've been practicing my gestures and all to get these right, to do them the way he does them in Italian. So the first one is curiosità, which means curiosity, right? You know, that's pretty good. Da Vinci was curious about everything. He went out and studied feathers and flowers and babies in the womb and just everything, and made sketches, and he kept a journal. It's thousands of pages. Picasso also kept a journal. A lot of creative people keep journals of their ideas. So one of the things we can learn is to be creative by being curious about the world around us. I wonder what about, suppose we did that. Oh yeah, that's cool. And you write these down, and some of them work out and a lot of them don't. We were over at, one of my class groups was over at App River talking to the chief executives there, and they said, well, what about your mistakes when you're developing new products? And they started laughing. They said, oh, we make lots of mistakes. But we have enough things going on that we correct those mistakes, we develop new products and so forth as a result of that. So the curiosity gets a lot of things going, and it makes it a lot easier to be creative because you have more to be creative with. The next one is sfumato. Sfumato. Sfumato means up in smoke. And it means kind of letting things go. You know, let it go. We have a lot of anxiety when we get creative. You know, it's kind of, and we have to kind of let go and let our unconscious mind work, because about 65% of our decisions are made by our unconscious mind. So down in the islands where the hurricanes are now, they're making rum, and they're doing it in some cases in the old-fashioned way. They put a big vat out, they put sugar cane in it, and they put water in it. And then the natural yeast comes in and it ferments and it kind of bubbles away, and over time it becomes something that's pretty good, and they distill it and they have great rum. Your unconscious mind is like that. So when you do sfumato, you're letting go and you're letting that mind work. That's why you have it, all of a sudden in the shower something comes to you, or you wake up and say, I got it, I got it. But in order to do that, we have to unplug. We have to take the earbuds out. We have to stop putting all kinds of entertainment in. We have wonderful opportunities to distract ourselves. But we have to listen to our own heart and our own ideas. And we can do that if we let sfumato happen. The next one is connessione. This means connections. So while some people, very good engineers, think 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, you know, very logical and systematic. Entrepreneurs, creative people, don't think that way. They think in terms of branches and connections. And I wonder if this is like that. So one entrepreneur said, I have observed that the craft beer industry worked like this, and now there's a craft distillery business, and I think it's going to work the same way, and I can connect some of those ideas here, and I can make a few $1 million, and he did. Seeing those connections is really important. Also, you can use groups to stay connected with your creative side and get people talking about stuff. Most writers belong to a writing group, and they get together and talk about their writing. And that keeps them connected to their own craft. And when you go to the writing group, you don't want to listen to everybody else's stuff. So you want to take something that you've done you can talk about. So that those connections are both personal and among subject matter pieces. The last one of Da Vinci's principles is demonstratione, which it means to demonstrate or experiment. So you put a lot of things out there and you see what works and what doesn't. We get feedback from our customers. We put out an early prototype. In business, we call that the minimum viable product. And we see what customers like and don't like. George and I were talking about that earlier, that often engineers will spend a lot of time on something that the customers don't care about. And they'll miss something that they could do very simply that customers say, oh, that's what I want. That's what I need. But to connect and get feedback from the demonstration, from the experimentation is really important. So I've talked about the fact that you are creative because you are human, and that's the way we have survived over the millions of years. I hope I've explained a little bit about how you think when you're creative, and that we want to give you an opportunity to practice that. And by using some of these principles that Da Vinci used, you can take your creation to the next level. And finally, the Da Vinci event, that celebration of innovation, will give you an opportunity to do just that and hopefully win some money, although it's really more about the participation. So thank you for listening. I've enjoyed talking with you and wish you the very best in the Da Vinci event. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to chat about them. Or if you want more pizza, I think there is some more left. Sure.
So what exactly do you do as a profession?
I talk. I profess things. I do whatever my boss wants me to do. Yeah, in the box, right? Yeah, mostly. No, I work with my colleagues to try to develop educational opportunities that will excite students. And so all of my classes, we go out in the community and do things. And students have to, and this is something that our Dean, Tim, and Emeritus Dean, Dr. Ranelli, supports strongly, is that we want our students to be out there learning. You don't learn just in here, you learn to apply things out there. So it's the doing, the demonstratione, that really helps you to learn. So I try to encourage that. I teach entrepreneurship classes and leadership and whatever, organization behavior and stuff. Thank you. Yes?
Yeah, do you think humanity is getting more creative or less creative in general?
Well, we had a golden age of innovation in the 1890s. And the horse, because if you wanted to get from point A to point B in 1880, you took a horse. If you wanted to do it in the year 800, you took a horse. So we had a big sea change of innovation, with Henry Ford saying, if I ask my customers what they want, they would say faster horses, but we're not going to give them that. We're going to give them something totally new. The Wright brothers, they had a bicycle shop. That was a big innovation. And then they developed that into an airplane. So we had a big sea change of kind of long cycle inventions. So there are a lot of different ways to look at it. We do see that there were fewer entrepreneurships being formed and we're concerned about that. We do see more women going into entrepreneurship and more minorities, and that's a very encouraging sign. So we're going to try to keep that going. Kind of depends on how you measure it, but I'm concerned about it. More questions? Yes?
If you have an idea, how do you know if it's a good idea? Or if you have a bundle of them, but you're not sure which one should be like brought to attention or worked on?
Dimostrazione. Get it out there and test it and try it. One of the things you don't want to do, and Steve Blank makes this point, he's a big entrepreneur that we had what do you call that? A seminar. It was a video seminar with Steve Blank. He's a professor, the Lean Startup and all that in Stanford. And so he talks about the fact, and I really see this, you don't want to go and say, take your little idea and say, do you like my idea? Because you'll get, it's like asking mom, oh yes, honey, your picture is really pretty. I really like it. I'm going to put it up here on the refrigerator. Right? It's really great. What you want to do is understand, and this is about the sort of value proposition. And the value proposition says this: you want to help your customers to do what they're trying to do. So a story that I like to tell is about a guy in the 1890s who was a salesman, and he would go on the railroads from town to town and sell his products. And in those days, the railroads went clickety-clack. Why? Because they were, kind of rugged and so forth. And so he would try to shave, and he was shaving with a straight razor. This was not a good idea, right? You could kill yourself pretty easily. So this guy, whose name was King Gillette, worked for years to make the safety razor. And there's a company by his name still, and it's gone very well, and they realized women were hairy too, so they could sell Venus shavers, and so everybody's now clean and smooth now, and so forth. In the 1880s, everyone had beards. I understand they're coming back, but then about 1900, they said, oh, those beard things, that's real old-fashioned, so everybody's got to get clean shaven, and that was dangerous. So if you can cure their pain, the thing that really bugs me about X is, and if you can fix that, you're in good shape. The other thing is, what are your customers trying to do? And if you can make it faster, better, cheaper, or all of the above, you're in good shape. So you want to talk to your customers about if you had an ideal product, what would it do for you? What are the points of pain that you encounter in your business? And what are some ways that you'd like to see it done? And then see if you can do that. That's going to be a winner. That's the value proposition. So, we're going to develop a X that does this for our customers when they. But great question. Thank you. So starting that way will help you to get a better entry into the Da Vinci celebration. Some more questions. Come on. I want a stupid question. I got a stupid question. Okay.
Oh, there's a question back there.
Okay. Yes.
When launching an idea, what's the steps on taking if you don't want somebody to steal your idea? Like, for example, if you go into the Da Vinci contest.
Yeah, that's a question we're getting some, and my personal view, having done this a few times, is that danger is very much overrated. And Professor Gibson, who was here, I don't know if he's still here, agrees with this as well, that most people aren't going to do your idea. So when some friends found out that I wrote, they would tell me their idea for a can't-miss novel, bestseller novel, and I was supposed to write it. Yeah, right. And because you really have to bring that passion, because the easy part is coming up with the idea. Really. That's the easy part. Execution is very hard. Very hard. There are a lot of steps to that. If you go to talk to an intellectual property attorney, he will tell you you must protect your property, and oh, by the way, it's going to cost you a few $1,000s. If you have a patent, that's good. Get one, particularly a design patent, and get them as soon as you can. that's going to cost you thousands of dollars, but it may protect you. On the other hand, if you don't have lots of money, someone with more money can wear you out in court and take your idea. So we have a real resource here on campus. It just came, a great guy. He's a fantastic, fantastically funny, smart, talented guy named Neville Sinclair, and he teaches intellectual property right here on campus. So if you have a question, I would suggest you talk to him. He's great. He'd be happy to talk to you about your idea. In some cases, it may be worth protecting. Most of the time, I find that, you know, for example, Sarah Blakely made $1 billion on the cover of Forbes magazine and so forth. And her idea was women's underwear, so it didn't have a line here, and it would shape and do all that stuff. So she could tell me that idea all day long, and I'm just like, don't care, not going to do that. But I mean, y'all have heard of, most of the women have heard of Spanx, right? She's done incredibly well with that, and because she had the passion to do it, and it wasn't easy. She actually went to an intellectual property attorney and told him her idea, and he was looking around thinking that it was a put on and there was a candid camera guy going to jump out because it was a gag. And she was serious. She got on Oprah, she did some other things, and it became really a winning product, and she's got a great line. It's super. But you know, the ideas are a dime a dozen. The passion behind it to really execute that's priceless. That's priceless. And we have ideas wandering around here that are worth a lot of money if somebody has the passion to follow them with intensity for years and years. So Quint Studer, he and I taught a class this summer, and I think Ed was there, and he talked about, you know, the overnight sensation. Well, he worked on developing his consulting for 8 or 10 years before he finally got it all to work out. And then he sold his company for a bunch of money, and he's reinvested that here in Pensacola. But it's the passion, and that's what I want to see in entrepreneurs, and that's what I want to see in the next generation of young folks. And we want to develop that, and we want to harness that. We want you to bring your passion. Once you get an idea, hopefully it'll be your baby, and you'll fall in love with it, and that passion will grow. So that's what we want to see. If you have an idea you think you ought to patent or protect, then go talk to Neville Sinclair. Another question? Yes.
Okay, I have a question. So when is it that you know that you think you might give up on the idea, or you should like get help from somewhere else, or you can salvage it into something else, or?
That's an individual call. Many entrepreneurs have had an idea, they got into a sticking place, they let it sfumato, let it sit for a while, and then eventually, oh, I never thought of it that way, it's backwards. And then they went on and made it work. So I would never tell an entrepreneur to quit. I might say, it needs a little more work, but you just don't know. So, I mean, if people knew the answer to that, life would be much, much simpler, and it's never going to be, by the way. Another question? Did you have one? Okay. Other questions? Well, thank you. I look forward to. Oh, there's one back there. Okay.
So right now I'm currently working on an app, and I want to do the Da Vinci project, but it's not currently done. So how would you promote? Like, how would you introduce an app to like the contest if it's not done, like in a PowerPoint form or stuff like that?
Good, great question. So one of the issues, and I'm glad you gave me a chance to talk about it, is we're going to have tables over at the Commons. So you'll present your idea at a table. You won't stand up and present it, but you'll have a demonstration of some sort. You may have a mock-up, a model. You may have a poster. You may, this is easy to do, you may develop an animated video that shows how it would work, how it would help the customer, that kind of thing. So there are all kinds of ways to do it, and So at CodeFest last year, people did the same kind of things at tables. So you might want to talk to people who are veterans of that experience, and also then Dr. Brian Eddy, who is the head of computer programming, that computer science stuff. But that'll be one of the challenges, is how do you display your idea? How do you show it to people? How do you communicate what it's about? Because if the judges don't get it, you're not going to win. You know, it may be a great idea, but communicating is really important. Often we find that it's not necessarily the best technology that wins, it's the best design, the best branding, the best communication with customers that wins. And that's true in the real world too, not just in contests, but in contests it just happens all the time. Well, great, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you at the Da Vinci event and to celebrating your innovations.